And President of the United States, Donald Trump, is still mounting up pressure on Russia to end its invasion of Ukraine. President Trump says he is facing challenges in getting President Vladimir Putin to embrace lasting peace. For this reason, he has issued a fresh ultimatum for Russia to agree to a ceasefire by the 8th of August or face new sweeping sanctions. And moving on from there now, on the flip side, the U.S. President Donald Trump says his country will impose 25% tariffs on goods imported from India and an unspecified penalty on the nation for buying Russian oil and weapons. On his Truth Social platform, Mr. Trump says the measures would take effect from the 1st of August, which is the U.S. deadline for a trade deal with nations. President Trump describes India as a friend whose tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world. Although India says it is committed to concluding a fair, balanced, and mutually beneficial trade agreement with the U.S., President Trump has criticized it for purchasing Russian military equipment and energy. At the time, he says, quote, "Everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine." President Trump said more to journalists in Washington on the subject.
We're negotiating right now, and it's also BRICS. You know, they have BRICS, which is basically a group of countries that are anti the United States, and India is a member of that, if you can believe it. It's an attack on the dollar, and we're not going to let anybody attack the dollar. So it's partially BRICS, and it's partially the trade situation. It's the deficit. We had a tremendous deficit. So, as you know, Prime Minister Modi is a friend of mine, but they don't do very much business in terms of business with us. They sell a lot to us, but we don't buy from them. You know why? Because the tariff is so high. They have one of the highest tariffs in the world. Now, they're willing to cut it very substantially, but we'll see what happens. We're talking to India now. We'll see what happens. It doesn't matter too much whether we have a deal or whether we charge them a certain tariff, but you'll know at the end of this week.
Well, for years, the U.S. has pushed for easier access to India's farm sector, which it sees as a major untapped market. But India has fiercely protected it, citing food security and the livelihood of millions of small farmers as reasons. Well, let's talk some more about this. Let's have an in-depth look into President Trump's trade regulations. The chairman of the 16th Council, UK, Dr. Brian Reuben, joins me virtually from London. Good to have you join us on World Now. August 1st is less than 12 hours away. Do you suppose the United States and India would be able to reach an agreement and get this clog off their wheel before deadline?
Thank you for having me. They're most unlikely to reach any agreement. I don't see anything like that. I mean, it's just a couple of hours. And you know, what we're seeing today is simply not another tariff announcement. It's a fundamental disruption of the global trading order. And President Trump's decision to impose 25% tariff on Indian imports and even threaten further penalties is not just about correcting trade imbalances. It's about asserting power, disciplining strategic non-alignment, and reintroducing coercion into the global economic relations. So, looking at it from that perspective, you see, Trump isn't just looking to get this agreement. He wants to get advantage, get an advantage for the United States. Economically, this injects enormous uncertainty into the global trading system. But to answer your question, I do not see this being resolved as quickly as within the next couple of hours. That's most unlikely to happen.
In the case of India, the U.S. president has repeatedly taken aim at the country's high tariffs. He's branded it a tariff king and a big abuser of trade ties. I'm curious if you share the same sentiment or you perceive there is some, do I call it truth now, facts in what the U.S. president has said?
The thing is, this has been like this for many years. Yes, there is that trade imbalance, one of the highest. But the U.S. has been, comfortable with that through the years. But we now have a new sheriff in town who's thinking differently. And as I did say, this is beyond just trying to balance trade. No, it is about exerting power and ensuring that that allies keep to certain keep to certain rules to be able to keep relationships with the United States. So it's beyond that to a certain power.
A certain power, but it does seem to be working for him, don't you think?
Absolutely, it does work because the United States holds a lot of strength. And there is one thing we cannot take away from Donald Trump. He loves his country and he wants America's interests, so to say. And I mean, just yesterday, we understand that the US has gotten a lot from the tariffs that they've been imposing. But it's not very good for the world. I think that's what we should be looking at, really, because if it works for you, it doesn't work for your allies. That's not what trading should be. Economically, this injects enormous uncertainty into the global system. I did say that before. And multinational corporations, they plan investments, based on stability, predictability, and the assumption that trade policy will follow rules, not just a presidential impulse. So when those assumptions break down, as they are now, capital becomes cautious, supply chains begin to shift, and the cost of doing business globally increases. And there is even another danger, which is the danger that lies in precedence. If the US government can slap punitive tariffs on a strategic partner like India over political disagreements and even non-trade issues like their membership of BRICS or Russian oil, then of course no country is safe from economic retaliation. That's even a more serious danger that the world should be concerned about.
And as we wrap up the conversation, why do you think these allies have not been able to collectively stand up to Donald Trump?
Because of the system and institutions. You have the dollar. I mean, the world economy is dollarized. That's the very strong strength. And most of the institutions, the IMF and all of them, they had an advantage built in for the United States from the time they were settled. And these are not things you can dismantle over time. But we are also seeing shifting alliances, all right, like the BRICS increasing in strength. And we're seeing all of that. We're also seeing that the allies are beginning to somehow stand up. For example, you hear France talking about recognizing the Palestinian state, and then you see UK saying the same thing. You see Canada now saying the same thing. That's not really a weakening of the American power. It is a demonstration of a post-US world order where allies are actually being able to stand for themselves. That will not happen overnight. It will take years because America has a very strong economy, very strong competitive advantage that have been built over the years. So it is not that the allies are not standing up, but you just can't do that. For example, take Europe as an example. Europe doesn't have the capacity even to defend itself, so to say. So you can't just get up and say, no, we are disagreeing. You care about security and all of that for your region as well. Those are some of the reasons.
Dr. Brian Reuben, thank you very much for your time on World Now.
Thank you. Thank you.